She paid me $1,000 to pretend to be her fiancé for 3 months. But when I walked into the wedding and saw my ex with my best friend, she told me, I didn't know about Kian. I just walked away. That was 2 months ago. This morning, she showed up at my door, her hands shaking with nothing left to say. My first month at my new job, this girl from my department promised me $1,000 if I could be her fiancé for 3 months. I thought it was a prank. Renee was the girl in the office that made managers forget about their wives. I was the new guy who only spoke to people about code. But then she explained that her hated cousin's wedding was in 90 days, and she needed someone tall and handsome, so her family would stop pressuring her to find someone. What she conveniently forgot to mention is that the cousin getting married was Sasha's cousin, my ex who had left me for my best friend. We drew up an actual contract on my laptop right there. No kissing, hand-holding only when necessary. We'd break up a week after the wedding, and we'd split any cash gifts 60-40 since she was paying me. She made me practice my boyfriend voice in the supply closet. You sound like you're reading a hostage note, she said, fixing my collar. I had to practice calling her babe without cringing. Rehearse how we met until our story was bulletproof. She taught me her dad liked football and her mom would judge my shoes. The first time I met her parents, I said we met at a conference while she said coffee shop. Her mom's eyebrow raised exactly 1 millimeter, but her dad laughed and said, can't keep your stories straight, must be true love. They grilled me for hours. I left with them believing I owned a ranch back in Canada. Renee made a show of kissing my cheek on the way out. Very theatrical, very fake. But then 2 weeks in, things started shifting subtly. At work, we kept our distance, separate lunch breaks, minimal interaction. But she'd started bringing me coffee without asking. Just left it on my desk with a sticky note. For the performance tonight. Oat milk latte, extra shot, which I'd never told her. The family dinners were exhausting at first. All performance. Hand-holding that felt like a business handshake. Practiced smiles. But by the third dinner, I wasn't checking my watch anymore. Her dad and I actually talked football. Her mom taught me recipes while Renee watched with this unreadable expression. Family game night changed everything. When we destroyed her siblings at charades, her dad pulled me aside. I've never seen her this comfortable with someone. That night in the car, Renee was quiet. Sorry, she said suddenly. For what? I asked. Just all of this. Everything I'm putting you through. I thought she meant the fake relationship. Looking back, she was apologizing for what was coming. Our text conversations evolved too. First, just logistics. Dinner at 7, blue shirt. Then she'd text after family events. You did good tonight. Then random thoughts at midnight. Then, you awake? At 2 a.m., followed by 40 messages about coworkers, movies, anything. She'd mention my idiot ex who fumbled the best guy ever, and I'd tense up. Seriously, who cheats on someone that amazing? She'd push, watching my reaction. Some people make mistakes, I'd mumble, and she'd look away, guilty about something I didn't understand yet. One night at the office, both staying late, we finally acknowledged it. This is getting complicated, I said. It's just method acting, she insisted, but her hands were shaking. Renee, you brought me soup when I was sick last week. That wasn't for your family. She stood up frustrated. So what if I care? We need to stick to the contract, I said weakly. Right, she agreed. But her nephew's birthday party was when pretending became impossible. I did dinosaur voices to make him laugh, and when I looked up, Renee was staring at me like I'd solved world hunger. Other moms kept asking how long we'd been together, and she'd get this soft look. The cake tasting was what broke us both. She started sobbing over chocolate versus vanilla, but I couldn't understand why. I held her in the parking lot while she ugly cried into my shirt. I'm so sorry, Alan. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I said. Yes, it is, she whispered, and no matter what I said, she refused to feel less guilty. Pretending to care about you is killing me, I finally admitted one night. She looked like she might cry. Alan, there's something. I perked up, but then she couldn't bring herself to say it. After the wedding, she said. We'll talk after the wedding. That's when it happened. The rehearsal dinner was the first time I would meet her cousin, the bride. I walked in confident, her hand in mine, ready to charm great aunts and distant cousins. I had been genuinely looking forward to it just to spend more time with Renee, but then I saw her, Sasha, in a pearly white dress. We locked eyes and suddenly the world stopped. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Then the worst possible thing happened. Kian stepped out from behind her, my ex-best friend, wearing a matching pearl white tie. The three of us stood frozen while Renee's relatives milled around clutching cocktails. Renee went rigid, and when I looked at her, I saw it. This was what she had been apologizing for. Sasha started storming toward us. Kian followed her, saying, Wait, I can't do this. I turned to Renee. Please. Her voice broke, but I was already walking out, leaving her standing there with her hand still extended toward where mine had been. She followed me to the parking lot. Please, just get through dinner. You knew they'd be here. I didn't know about Kian, but you knew about Sasha. That wasn't a question. Alan number. I originally just wanted. I cut her off. I told her I needed time, then got in my car and left. She had to walk back in and make up some excuse about food poisoning. She texted me all evening. 72 messages and 21 calls I didn't respond to. But then next morning at 4 a.m., she showed up at my door. The wedding's in 10 hours. Please, she sobbed. I stood there, not knowing what to do. She was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering even though it was warm outside. I opened the door wider, and she practically fell through it. Her makeup had run down her face in black streaks, and her dress from the rehearsal dinner was wrinkled like she'd slept in her car. The neighbors across the hall had cracked their door open to watch, so I pulled her inside before they called security. She collapsed onto my couch and immediately started digging through her purse with trembling hands. Her phone screen lit up with dozens of missed calls from her family. She swiped past them and pulled up old photos from her camera roll. 2 girls in matching red Christmas sweaters smiled at the camera, maybe 12 years old. Renee pointed at the taller one with perfect teeth. That was Sasha. They looked like sisters almost. Same nose, same chin. But Sasha's smile was bigger and brighter even back then. Renee scrolled to another photo from high school where Sasha wore a crown at what looked like homecoming while Renee stood in the background. Another photo showed them at some family party where everyone surrounded Sasha while Renee sat alone at a side table. My chest got tight as the pieces started clicking together in my head. She'd known exactly who my ex was when she hired me for this fake boyfriend job. She'd known I'd walk into that rehearsal dinner and see the woman who destroyed me. My hands started shaking too, but from anger, not sadness. Renee must have seen my face change because she grabbed my arm and shook her head so hard her earrings rattled. She tried to explain that yes, at first she just wanted to show up with someone impressive to make Sasha jealous for once in her life. But then everything changed when she actually got to know me. The coffee she brought me every morning, the soup when I was sick, the way she cried at the cake tasting, none of that was fake. Her voice cracked as she talked about how Sasha always got everything first. Better grades even though Renee studied harder. The lead in every school play while Renee worked backstage. The promotion at their grandmother's company that Renee had been promised. When Sasha announced her engagement at Thanksgiving, their mom literally turned to Renee and asked why she couldn't be more like her cousin. I walked to the kitchen because I needed to do something with my hands before I punched a wall. My body went through the motions of making coffee without thinking about it. 2 scoops of grounds, water to the 4-cup line, then I reached for the oat milk without even realizing I was making her drink, not mine. Extra shot of espresso, no sugar, exactly how she liked it. My hands shook as I poured, and I had to admit to myself that I'd memorized every little thing about her without meaning to. She followed me to the kitchen and pulled up her text messages to show me dozens of unsent drafts from weeks ago. Each one started with her trying to tell me the truth about Sasha. The timestamps showed she'd written them at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, right after our family dinners. But she never sent them because every time I mentioned my ex, my whole face would change and she couldn't stand being the one to hurt me like that again. The anger came rushing back, and I slammed the coffee mug down so hard that liquid splashed onto the counter. She knew I'd walk into that room and see them together. She knew what that would do to me after everything I'd told her about the betrayal. Nathan's toy dinosaur sat on my coffee table where he'd left it last week when they'd stopped by after his swimming lesson. Seeing it made everything worse because her whole family had become part of my life, and now it was all built on lies. Renee completely fell apart then, sliding down the kitchen cabinet until she sat on my floor sobbing. She kept saying she'd tried to prepare me by bringing up my ex in conversations to see if I was ready to face her. She thought she could somehow make it easier, but she was too scared to just tell the truth. Her whole body shook as she admitted she'd fallen for me and ruined everything because she was a coward. My phone started buzzing on the counter with text after text. What's really going through Renee's mind when she picks this specific guy for her scheme? She calls him tall and handsome, but there's something deliberate about choosing someone who only spoke to people about code. Makes me wonder if she wanted someone she thought wouldn't get too attached or ask too many questions about her real motives. Marcus asking if I was okay and saying they were worried about me. Elena saying Renee had left the dinner crying and nobody knew where either of us went. Even little Nathan had sent a voice message that his mom helped him record, asking where Uncle Alan was and why Aunt Renee was so sad. Each message made my chest hurt more because these people had become real family to me over the past 2 months. I sat down on the kitchen floor across from her because my legs felt too heavy to keep standing. The wedding would start in 9 hours and I had no idea what to do about any of this. She looked up at me with red swollen eyes and said I should choose what happens next and she'd accept whatever I decided. The clock on my microwave showed 4:47 a.m. and we sat there on my kitchen floor in silence while the coffee maker gurgled and dripped behind us. She finally pushed herself up from my kitchen floor and started laying out options while pacing around my tiny apartment. Option 1 was I could come to the wedding and we'd stick to the contract like nothing changed, pure business. She'd even pay me extra on top of the 1,000 we agreed on, and after today she'd never bother me again if that's what I wanted. Option 2 was I could stay home and she'd tell everyone we broke up, make up some story about how I wasn't ready for commitment or whatever would make her family stop asking questions. I watched her hands shake as she gripped the counter and asked what option 3 was, even though I wasn't sure why I was asking. Her whole body went still and she turned to look at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Option 3 was we could go to this wedding together not as fake anything, but as whatever we actually were to each other now, facing this whole mess as real people instead of actors playing parts. The words hung there between us while the sun started coming up through my kitchen window. She waited for maybe 30 seconds before grabbing her keys and saying she needed to go get ready, but I should text her whatever I decided. After she left, I sat at my laptop staring at our contract file with all the notes I'd been keeping for 3 months. There were pages of details about her family members and their quirks, inside jokes we'd created during dinners, screenshots from her mom's Facebook where she'd posted photos of us at family events looking happier than I remembered feeling at the time. My phone buzzed with a text from Kian saying he knew things were weird, but both he and Sasha really wanted me at the wedding and asking if we could talk. I deleted it immediately but took a screenshot first because something in my gut said I should document everything from here on out. The suit Renee had helped me pick 3 weeks ago was hanging in my closet and I pulled it on just to see how it looked. She'd spent over an hour at the store making sure the fit was perfect, smoothing down the lapels and stepping back to look at me from different angles while telling me I looked like James Bond, then turning red when she realized how excited she sounded. My phone rang and Marcus's name showed up on the screen. He said he didn't know what happened last night, but Renee hadn't been herself lately and these past weeks with me were the happiest he'd seen her since she was a kid. Just thought I should know before making any decisions about today. After hanging up, I drove to the wedding venue but parked across the street instead of in the actual lot. Guests were starting to arrive in fancy cars and I watched from my driver's seat as a white limo pulled up and Sasha stepped out in her wedding dress, looking perfect and laughing at something the photographer said. The weird thing was it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. More like watching a movie about strangers than seeing my ex who destroyed me. My phone lit up with a text from Renee saying she was at the venue and had told everyone I had food poisoning but might show up if I felt better. No pressure though. And she attached a photo of the place card with my name still sitting next to hers at the family table her mom had saved just in case. Through my windshield I spotted Nathan in his tiny tuxedo, standing near the entrance looking around with this sad expression while Grace bent down to whisper something to him. He shook his head and clutched the stuffed dinosaur I'd given him at his birthday party, the one he'd named Rex and carried everywhere now. My chest got tight watching this little kid search the crowd for me while wedding guests streamed past him into the building. Someone knocked on my car window and I jumped hard enough to hit my head on the roof. Sasha stood there in her wedding dress with the fabric pooling around her feet on the asphalt, gesturing for me to roll down the window. When I did, she immediately launched into this speech about how she needed to explain about Kian and how it wasn't supposed to happen the way I thought it did. The thing that struck me wasn't what what she was saying, but what she wasn't saying because there was no actual apology in any of it, just her trying to control how the story sounded. I finally cut her off by asking how exactly it was supposed to happen then. She started fumbling with her words while adjusting her dress against the morning breeze. She managed to get out something about how they just fell in love, and it was messy, but real. Then she actually said she needed me to forgive them, so everyone could move forward. The way she said it made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. I told her I didn't forgive her and didn't need to. I said she made her choice, but this wasn't about her anymore. Her face went through about 6 different expressions before she asked why I was even here then. That's when it hit me exactly why I'd driven all the way here. I rolled up the window while she was still standing there and drove toward the venue parking lot. The ceremony was already starting when I walked through the heavy wooden doors. Every head in the back rows turned, but I kept walking down the side aisle. Renee's eyes went huge when she spotted me sliding into the empty seat beside her. I took her hand without thinking about it, not for show, but because I wanted to. She squeezed back so hard my knuckles cracked. During the vows, when Kian stood up there promising to be faithful, I felt Renee's whole body go rigid beside me. She leaned over and whispered we could leave if I wanted. I whispered back that we were seeing this through to the end. Elena was sitting on Renee's other side and gave me this small, approving nod. The reading started, and Nathan scrambled out of Grace's lap and climbed into mine instead. He started whispering about dinosaurs while the reader droned on about love and commitment. His little hands were making pterodactyl wings against my chest. This moment felt more real than anything I'd experienced with Sasha in our entire 2 years together. Renee was watching us with this look on her face I couldn't figure out. The reception moved to the ballroom next door, and we found our table assignment on the seating chart. Table 3 put us right with Sasha's parents, who kept shooting looks at me every few seconds. Her mom's mouth was this tight line while her dad wouldn't make eye contact at all. Renee handled their awkward questions like she'd been doing this her whole life, deflecting and redirecting with practiced ease. I focused on cutting Nathan's chicken into dinosaur shapes while he narrated an entire prehistoric battle. During cocktail hour, Keon cornered me by the bar while I was getting Renee a drink. He started with this whole speech about how we needed to clear the air between us. I set down the glasses and stood up slowly to face him. I told him we weren't bros and never would be again. I said he slept with my girlfriend while pretending to be my friend and there was nothing to clear. His face went red and he stepped closer like he might actually try something at his own wedding. Renee appeared between us before anything could happen. She told Keon maybe he should focus on his bride instead of harassing her boyfriend on his wedding day. The way she said boyfriend hung in the air because she didn't add the word fake in front of it. Keon backed off and stalked away while Renee's hand found mine again. Marcus caught up with me during the cigar break on the terrace after dinner. He lit his Cuban and started talking about how he and Elena actually had an arranged marriage at first. He said it took them 3 years to fall in love for real, but now he couldn't imagine life without her. He looked at me through the smoke and said, sometimes the best things start as business arrangements. We stood there watching the sunset while wedding music drifted through the French doors. Back inside for dinner, Sasha's maid of honor got up to give her speech about true love conquering all obstacles. She kept making these pointed looks at me every time she said the word obstacles. Under the table, Renee's hand found mine and held on tight. The maid of honor finally sat down after her speech, and servers started clearing plates while the DJ grabbed his mic to announce the bouquet toss. All the single women crowded onto the dance floor, except Renee, who stayed in her seat shaking her head until her sister Grace physically dragged her out there. Sasha stood at the front in her white dress, holding her bouquet and scanning the crowd of women behind her with this weird smile. She turned around and locked eyes directly with Renee, then spun back and threw the bouquet hard, like she was trying to knock someone out with it. The flowers sailed straight at Renee's face, and she caught them purely out of reflex to protect herself from getting hit. Sasha turned around with this nasty smirk and said loud enough for everyone to hear that maybe Renee would be next if she could find someone real. The whole room went quiet for a second, and I saw Renee's face go from shocked to furious in about half a second. Catching a bouquet out of self-defense while your ex-best friend throws shade at your wedding? Now that's a plot twist worthy of its own reality show. Someone call the producers because this reception just got spicy. She stood up suddenly and somehow had a microphone in her hand before I could even process what was happening. I reached for her arm to pull her back down, but she was already talking into the mic, saying she wanted to make a toast to her cousin Sasha. The room went dead silent, and even the servers stopped moving as Renee raised her champagne glass and said Sasha always got what she wanted. She kept going, saying whether it was the promotion at their grandma's company, or the bigger wedding budget, or even other people's boyfriends. Gasps went through the crowd, and I saw Marcus sit up straighter, while Elena's mouth fell open in shock. Renee wasn't done though, and thanked Sasha because her choices had led Renee to me, to Alan. Sasha's face went completely white, and she tried to tell Renee to stop, but Renee kept talking into the mic. She said I had spent 3 months pretending to love her for money, only to discover what we had was more real than anything Sasha and Kian built on lies. The room exploded into chaos with people talking over each other, and Elena trying to stand up to restore order, while Marcus actually started laughing at the worst possible moment. Sasha's parents were demanding to know what was going on, and pointing at Renee while other relatives were pulling out their phones to record everything. I stood up and took the microphone from Renee's hand before she could say anything else that would make this worse. I told everyone she was right about it starting fake, but that watching Renee with her family and seeing her kindness and strength had made me fall for real. Then I turned to look directly at Sasha and Kian, who were both frozen in place, looking like they wanted to disappear. I thanked Sasha for cheating on me, and thanked Kian for being exactly who he was, because they both led me to find someone who actually fought for me. I turned back to Renee and said she fought for me even when she was scared of losing me, and even when I didn't deserve it. Sasha grabbed her bouquet from where Renee had dropped it and threw it hard at Renee's head, screaming that she had ruined the wedding. Renee caught it and threw it right back, yelling that Sasha had ruined my life first, so they were even. The two cousins started moving toward each other, and their parents had to physically hold them back while security guards in black suits rushed in from the lobby. 2 guards grabbed me and Renee by the arms and started walking us toward the exit, while the wedding guests were all standing and shouting. Elena followed us out, surprising me by how calm she seemed compared to the chaos behind us. She told us what we did was inappropriate, inappropriate, but then smiled just a little bit and said it wasn't undeserved since Sasha had always been a bully. She said she was glad someone finally said what everyone had been thinking for years before going back inside to deal with the mess. The security guards walked us all the way to the parking lot and stood there watching to make sure we actually left. Renee and I climbed onto the hood of my car, still wearing our formal clothes, and watched through the big windows as people inside tried to calm down. We could see Sasha crying while Kian tried to comfort her, and the DJ awkwardly trying to get people to dance again. Renee looked at me and asked if we were still breaking up a week after the wedding like our contract said. I didn't answer right away because honestly, I had no idea what to say or what I even wanted anymore. We sat there for another hour watching the disaster we had caused until security came out and told us to leave the property completely. The next morning, my phone was going crazy with notifications, and I had 47 messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Someone had posted the whole thing on TikTok, and it already had 2 million views with the caption about the bride's cousin exposing a fake relationship and affair at the wedding. Renee texted me that we were apparently famous now, and also she was definitely getting fired when she went to work on Monday. Her boss had already seen the video and wanted to talk to her about representing the company poorly or something like that. I watched the video myself and saw how crazy we both looked standing there with microphones calling out the bride at her own wedding. The comments were split between people saying we were heroes for exposing cheaters and others saying we were awful for ruining someone's special day. Renee's mom called me 3 times, but I didn't answer because I had no idea what to say to her after everything. Marcus left me a voicemail just laughing and saying that was the most entertaining wedding he had ever been to in 60 years. My own parents started texting, asking if the video going around was really me and what the hell I was thinking causing a scene like that. The video kept spreading, and by noon it had 5 million views, and someone had already made a remix with dramatic music added. Renee came over to my apartment that afternoon, looking exhausted and carrying a box of her stuff from the office because they had already let her go. She sat on my couch, and we just stared at each other, not knowing what to say about the complete disaster we had created together. The next morning, we decided to meet at the coffee shop on 3rd Street, where we used to practice our fake couple stories before family dinners. I got there first and ordered my usual while watching the morning crowd rush past the windows. Renee walked in 10 minutes later looking tired but determined, and when the barista saw us together, he practically jumped over the counter. He kept saying we were legends and showed us his phone where the wedding video had another 1 million views overnight, then refused to let us pay for our drinks. We found a corner table away from everyone and sat there stirring our coffees without talking for a while. I finally asked when it stopped being fake for her. She stared at her latte and told me it was the night I made dinosaur voices for Nathan at his birthday party when I didn't know she was watching and there was no one to perform for. Her phone started buzzing on the table.